Sean McDermott is out as Bills head coach. My thoughts on what motivated the decision, why you should be optimistic, and why you should be concerned are all coming your way today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Locked On Bills is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Well, folks, welcome in. It's the day after. Yesterday, the Bills fired head coach Sean McDermott, and there's been a little time to process, for the dust to settle. Now, we still haven't heard from Brandon Beane or Terry Pagula or Josh Allen, but there's been enough time for us to have a fresh approach at this conversation. And I'm really happy with the conversations we had yesterday. I went live right after the news was announced, and then we had a roundtable discussion on Bill Squad with myself, Jeremy White, and Jerry Ostrowski that I think encapsulated a lot of those initial thoughts. But I want to kind of take a deeper look today and examine what motivated this decision, why we should be optimistic about the decision, and the concerns that exist with the decision. So let's dive into it. And one thing that I think we can all agree on is that nobody woke up on Monday morning and said, you know what, we got to let Sean McDermott go. This has clearly been something that's been brewing, potentially for a while. And so what motivated the decision? Of course, at a high level, it's 7 playoff runs with Josh Allen and no Super Bowl appearances. And because of that, you need a shakeup. And so I understand that. And that's part of my whole coming to terms with it is, okay, yeah, all right, I get it. 7 chances at a playoff run with Josh Allen. You have not even been to the Super Bowl. All right, fine. Shake it up. But there's also clearly a rift between, or was a rift between Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane. I would assume at the core of that is competitive tension. 7 playoff runs with Josh Allen and no Super Bowl. I'm sure there's quite a bit of, well, I supplied the team necessary to go win the Super Bowl. What's going on? And the other side of that from McDermott is probably, well, I disagree. These are not necessarily the right personnel moves throughout the years that gave me the best chance to go do it. So you had a rift, and I would like to believe that it's rooted in a healthy competitive tension, but at some point it probably became unhealthy. I think a lot about Brandon Beane and his messaging coming out of last year's draft, when he went on WGR with Jeremy and Joe and went crazy about wide receivers and said, it's not wide receivers, it's not fantasy football. We had the best scoring offense last year, more than the Super Bowl champion Eagles. It's defense. The defense is the reason. That's why we invested in the defense. And that's 100% taking shots at Sean McDermott. He's a defensive-minded head coach. And I agree that there was a lot of truth to that. Their defense has been the biggest letdown in the playoffs. But then he just kept on going, right? Pat McAfee, whatever shows he could go on, he was going on and not only taking a victory lap for going after Jeremy and Joe, but wanting to let the world know it's the defense. And then you've kind of felt from Sean McDermott and his messaging. He's detached himself more and more from Brandon Beane, which I think has been going on for a few years, but especially lately. When asked about the draft and his process, and he says, I give my input, but it's ultimately Brandon Beane's arena. When asked about the trade deadline and his involvement, he says, I share my thoughts, but it's Brandon Beane and his arena. And the very direct comments that he's made about how influential the trades for Jacoby Myers and Greg Newsome were for the Jaguars. There's clearly a rift. I don't think anyone would debate that. So you've got a lot of success, but not the ultimate success. You have a GM and a head coach that there's clearly a rift. Something's got to go, right? Got to make a change. Now, through this decision, Terry Pegula is telling us that the leading reason why is Sean McDermott. Or what he believes to be the leading reason why. Or what Brandon Beane has convinced him is the leading reason why. And so I think about, what's Sean McDermott truly responsible for? I would lead with style of play, defensively and offensively. Maybe you do believe that Sean McDermott's philosophy on defense was holding this team back. Plenty of criticism for the archetypes at defensive tackle, linebacker, corner. Maybe those were too restrictive. What about offensively? How this offense has evolved from Josh Allen throw the ball all over the yard to the most run-aggressive offense in the NFL. Is this something that we are now pinning on Sean McDermott as something that's held the Bills back? They've become run-aggressive. Is that not the right idea when Josh Allen's your quarterback? Does it need to be more Josh Allen throwing centric than, all right, well, we have a huge emphasis on the run game. In fact, the most emphasis on the run game of any team in the NFL. And you or Terry Pegula or Brandon Beane say, yeah, this is not the right idea for how we optimize Josh Allen in this offense. I think about other aspects of coaching, like player development. I think we can all look through the draft history and find plenty of misses or players that are pretty good, but maybe you wish were a little bit better. And Brandon Beane saying it's not the players are fine. It's surely the coaching, right? It's the onboarding development of the players that is the leading reason to why these draft picks haven't quite hit like we hoped. Now, I certainly think you would point any in-game decision or game plan stuff on McDermott. I think there's been way more highs than lows there, but okay, yeah, maybe there's times you didn't have the right stuff. And I also think about injuries. This team's been banged up. It has been for the last several years, especially on defense. Found it interesting that Tim Graham shared on X yesterday that he was told the medical staff has been reporting to Brandon Beane, which is a big reason why we get some of the responses from Sean McDermott in the media when asked about injuries or talking about injuries. He says, based on what I've been told. Well, apparently these medical people, this training staff is going to Beane first, and Sean gets what he gets. I mean, it sounds kind of weird to me, but that's what Tim Graham was told, and Tim Graham is somebody I trust. Is there something about Sean McDermott's process, about practice or preparing for a season that has made this team more injury prone? All the things that I just said are very speculative, but you have to think that these are the factors that inspired or fueled or motivated Terry Pegula to let go of Sean McDermott. And not only let go of Sean McDermott, but keep Brandon Beane and elevate Brandon Beane. And so I think those are the variables. That's what's baked into this decision. And so coming up next, I want to take an optimistic view at changing head coaches and my thoughts on that, including a parallel from another quarterback, but maybe not the one you think. So we'll talk about that here on the other side of it. So folks, be sure to stick with me. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. If I needed to hire someone, I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not just some resume buzzword. Instead of just struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. So you can spend more time interviewing candidates that check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Check it out. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just head to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving on the action, so when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right, welcome back, folks. We're exploring this decision to let go of Sean McDermott. We've gotten into what motivated it. We'll talk now about the optimistic viewpoint of where this thing can go. I would like to invite you to subscribe to this podcast on YouTube or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. We are daily all year long. So just because the season's over, nothing really changes. We are going to crank out Bills discussion for you daily here on this podcast feed, in addition to the roundtable discussions on Bill Squad. So don't miss anything. Make sure that you're subscribed. So let's take the optimistic view approach of this. Like, what's the viewpoint on that? Well, I think where you would draw optimism is believing that Sean McDermott was truly what has held this operation back. And now he's no longer part of the mix. Everything that we just went through in that first segment that motivated the decision is true or mostly true. And it's consequential in what this team has and has not achieved. Maybe that's true. Maybe there were limitations to personnel. Maybe there were issues with McDermott's approach that led to injuries. Maybe he didn't develop players good enough. Maybe that's why Tyre Elam or Keon Coleman haven't turned out. Maybe that's why Boogie Basham wasn't very good. Yeah, I'm open to it. I'm open to it. Let me say this. I'm not against the idea of the switch. I'm really not. It's the Beane layer that confuses me. But I'll also say this, like, I'm excited to explore the unknowns. It's interesting. I'm curious. I'm hopeful. I think it would be hard to rally once again with the same brain trust and to get a similar result. And now 7 playoff runs without a Super Bowl appearance turns into 8. I get that. And so, yeah, I mean, the unknowns, I'm curious, I'm excited, I'm optimistic, I'm hopeful. There's value in a fresh perspective. Now, this isn't quite the, 19 years of Mike Tomlin or whatever it was, but he had 9 seasons. I know that McDermott has evolved a ton throughout that, but, You get a fresh perspective to step in here and lead, right? Can't be a bad thing. Maybe it could. I'm curious. There's the layer of Josh Allen. You get a new voice for Josh Allen, who's obviously an unbelievable football player. To me, the best in the world. A new voice for him, even if it's a familiar voice like a Brian Daboll or a Davis Webb or a Joe Brady. It would be, that voice would now be elevated. That's the lead guy, the head coach. And I am curious to see what direction things go for Josh Allen in terms of just the style of offense. We've really seen a drastic shift in this team's offensive approach across Josh Allen's tenure as a starting quarterback. What it looks like from here is going to be pretty telling. And I'm curious to see what it is. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. But maybe this is what makes me the most optimistic. And you try to draw parallels to other situations that might have been similar, and there's a good story to tell. And I know that some people will point to, John Gruden going to the Bucs or Tony Dungy going to the Colts. Okay. My mind goes to the Denver Broncos and John Elway. And Josh Allen's received plenty of comparisons to John Elway. And certainly John Elway was unbelievably gifted. And he's the Denver Broncos starting quarterback in 1983, and he's with Dan Reeves for his first 10 seasons. They had a lot of success. 6 playoff runs, 3 Super Bowl losses. And eventually Wade Phillips becomes their head coach for 2 years. They go 7-9 and 9-7. And then this guy named Mike Shanahan shows up in 1995, and he coaches John Elway for his last 4 seasons, and in his last 2, they won 2 Super Bowls. I'm hopeful and optimistic that this head coach is Mike Shanahan to John Elway. So new head coach, that to Josh Allen. That's what I'm hoping for. And obviously there's a huge search to find that guy. And it'll be exciting to see what names are surfaced in terms of who's getting interviews. I promise you we'll talk about it along the way. But I'm looking for the Bills to find our John Elway, his Mike Shanahan. All right, so there's the optimistic look at this. Now there's plenty of risk, which I'm going to explore here next. So folks, be sure to stick with me. Kicking off the year feeling good is the goal, right? And honestly, hydration is the easiest win. When I stay on top of it, my energy, focus, and mood all level up. But let's be real, plain water doesn't always cut it, especially when you're grinding through long days, hitting the gym, or just trying to stay consistent with your health goals. That's where Drip Drop comes in. Doctor-developed, proven fast hydration that helps your body and mind work better. Think clearer focus, better energy, elevated mood, even that fresh skin glow. I've actually been using Drip Drop as part of my daily routine, and it's honestly a game changer, not just for workouts, but for every single day. And it tastes amazing. I'm obsessed with the lemon lime flavor. That's actually my new favorite. There are 16 original flavors and 8 zero sugar options to choose from. It really does taste good. I've been through a lot of the different hydration packages, and some of them are just like bitter or salty. Like this is delicious. I'm not going to lie to you. Drip Drop's science-backed formula is trusted by firefighters, medical professionals, and over 90% of top college and pro teams because it rehydrates you faster and more effectively than water alone. Right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. So go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNFL for 20% off. Stock up now at dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Folks, FanDuel is officially in playoff mode every game day during the NFL playoffs. FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts that you can apply to the bets that you like the most. Make sure you open that profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boost you want to apply. And the boosts are going to let you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. Every player's going to play is going to feel bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. So you make your picks and apply your profit boost to the picks that you like to go after bigger payouts while the playoffs are rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Well, folks, welcome back. We're talking about a head coach being fired and getting a new one. This is an interesting layer to this offseason that I didn't fully expect. So we're going to adjust as necessary. I'm excited to have some new things to talk about here on Locked On Bills. So we will do a lot of our normal offseason stuff, but right now the focus has to be on this coach decision and this coaching search. Would love to invite you to check out thejoemarino.com. I have a lot going on, other podcasts, other content that you can take advantage of. But if you join either our Substack or our Subtext, so Substack is where I provide additional written and film content. Subtext is a text club where I send text messages right to your phone, giving you Bills news and reaction as it happens. And either one of those two things will get you into our Discord channel. Over 2,000 Bills fans are in there, and we have a lot of fun. We talk Bills all day, every day, and all kinds of other things. But one thing I do every Wednesday night is I go live. We go live at 8 o'clock Eastern time, and it's me and usually Jerry Ostrowski, and we just hang out. We call it the Herd Hangout. And I take questions. We have little games that we'll play and stuff. Like, come be part of it. It's super fun, and I'm excited for this Wednesday, of course, because of this news, and I want to just kind of have that big discussion with everybody, kind of candid, no, it's not going to be produced for content. And so we have a lot of fun on those Wednesday nights. So come be part of it. Go to thejoemarino.com, join either the Substack or the Subtext, and you can get into our Discord channel and be part of what we have going on Wednesday nights and every day. All right, so let's talk about the risk, because there's absolutely risk associated with this. And I got some things to get into. I think the first thing that's risky to me about this whole thing is that Brandon Beane becomes more powerful, but he also becomes more insulated. He's the president of football operations and the general manager. Now, I would not be surprised if he hires a general manager. I wouldn't. And, the Bills have some guys that have had looks from other teams, guys like Terrence Gray, Brian Gaine. We'll see where all this goes. But I could see him promoting one of them to GM to kind of work under him. And the concern there is he becomes more powerful but more insulated. So now if he adds that general manager, which he probably will, now he's above that general manager, but also not directly responsible for everything. I think it allows him to maybe have more options to direct blame. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe this puts more on Beane and he's more culpable for everything, because this new structure is not horizontal. This is Terry Pegula, Brandon Beane, everyone else. Before it was Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, they both reported Terry Pegula. It's different now. And that's not an uncommon structure. There are teams that are doing this. Green Bay, the Giants, among teams. Tennessee, there are teams that are doing this. Atlanta. And so, point being is Brandon Beane is getting more power. Is there merit to that? Respectfully, is there merit to Brandon Beane getting more power? I have a hard time detaching Beane from the failures that we are pinning on Sean McDermott. And I think that's what's been hard for me about this entire decision. Like I said a million times, whatever, shake it up. But for the shakeup to be McDermott's out, Beane stays and gets a promotion, got a math problem here. It doesn't really add up to me. I don't understand the merit that would lead to Brandon Beane getting the promotion. I have a hard time detaching Beane from the failures, especially if he's truly, and it's my belief that he's truly responsible for the roster. Okay. Yeah, you take input from your coaching staff, but ultimately the players that are there are the players that you pick to be there. And we know there's been personnel missteps. I don't have to go into that with you right now. I think you have a big risk in terms of the direction of your culture. I'm not going to act like some other coach can't come in here and maintain or even build upon the strong culture that exists in Buffalo. But what's very unique about this choice for the Bills, Sean McDermott didn't lose the locker room. Not even close. There's no reason to believe that his messaging is stale or that the team wasn't competing or that the team didn't show up ready to compete on a weekly basis. He did not lose that locker room. There's no way you could believe that to be true. And this is Buffalo's a unique place. And I think more than maybe anywhere else in the NFL, the culture, the buy-in, the camaraderie, the togetherness, the bond, the love, all of that matters more in Buffalo than maybe anywhere else. And so you have existing players, and I'm sure there's going to be quite a bit of roster turnover. I'm sure of that. But you have existing players that now, some have been there for a long time, that are still critical to the foundation of your team. They're going to have to buy in, right, to the new way that's coming. You have new players that will be added to this roster. I'd imagine a good amount of new players that will be added to this roster. And they have to buy in, and it'll probably be easier for them because they're part of this new approach. And I'm sure that the new head coach will have some of his guys that he'll want to come with him. But it's all got to come together, right? It's got to happen. It's got to come together. What do you think the draw is for players to continue their careers in Buffalo, come back to Buffalo, or come to Buffalo to begin with when they have a choice? I think it's Josh Allen and culture. Now, it's not completely fair to say that Brandon Beane doesn't have an impact on the draw of Buffalo. That's not fair. If he's responsible for picking the players and he gets credit for who they are and their makeup and all of that. But the guy that's in the weeds day to day is Sean McDermott with the players. Josh Allen's, the type of quarterback that people are going to want to come play with. And so did you potentially compromise some of that? I think you did. That's the risk. I said potentially compromise. I didn't say they did. And so that's part of the risk. Now you also have a new head coach. Is it going to be a first-time head coach? You got to live with the growing pains of a first-time head coach. And look, I hope that you watch other football besides the Bills, because you're going to see a lot of like game management, end of game stuff, things that are just, you're like, really? You see Sean McVay coach against the Bears in that divisional round playoff game. Did you see that? I mean, these coaches across the league, like, for as revered as some of them are, they really do kind of struggle consistently in some of these game management moments. Now you're going to have a guy that, for if they're a first-time coach, whether they've been around the league for a long time or not, you're still for the first time in that seat of making big decisions, not only on game day, but everything that goes into coaching a football team. Is this a team that can really afford growing pains? The risk associated with that. And then there is this expectation, right? Like, the Bills have first world problems. I hope they continue to have first world problems. This isn't like what's happening in Tennessee or Miami or Atlanta. The Bills have had a lot of success. And Terry Pegula just said, not enough, though. Not enough. What has to happen in 2026 for this to be widely accepted as the right move for the Bills? Could they get bounced in the – what if they get bounced in the wild card round? What if they don't make the playoffs? What if they get bounced in the divisional round? We'll be like, okay, well, we like the way the team looks, so we can live with it, and we'll see how it goes for the second season. there's a unique expectation on this job. It's not unlike what's going on in Baltimore. There's a unique expectation. And I hope that Terry Pegula and Brandon Beane can find the right coach that will meet that expectation. I want to reiterate, I have shared my concerns, but let me make something abundantly clear to you. I am rooting for this to work out. I want this to work out. I want this to be the move that we all look back on and say, you know what? That was the right one. That was Mike. They did it. They got Mike Shanahan for Josh Allen. That's what I want to do. More than anything, I want to look back on this and celebrate. And so hopefully this conversation was helpful for you to just kind of gain more perspective on the situation. I've really enjoyed, for the most part, the discussions that have come since this, because I think a lot of people have really good ideas and bouncing things off of each other. And yeah, remember this, and you kind of piece things together. I've enjoyed that. There's also been the other side of it where people are people, right? I get it. But I hope that this is a move that we look back on fondly and something that brings this team together in new ways and gets over the hump, and we can finally have that parade we've all been dreaming about. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here today. I'm going to assume we'll start to get some candidates, some interview requests. We'll certainly dive into all of those possibilities as they come up and start navigating through this offseason. So make sure that you are subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.